Welcome to the Peak Performance Productivity Podcast, revealing what productive peak performers think, say and do, so you too can be productive. With me, your host, Michael Tipper. Now, my guest today is a highly successful businessman and much sought after expert on entrepreneurship and business growth. He is one of those rare speakers and thought leaders that speaks about how he is actually applying his knowledge and expertise in today's business environment. The author of at least 10 highly acclaimed books, if you don't count the foreign language versions, his business philosophies are endorsed by Richard Branson, who has said Robert's approach will turn your business into a powerhouse. He's been running successful businesses since he was 21 and is now considered one of the leading experts on building, running and growing digital agencies, working closely with Google to develop their agency training program. His most recent book, Grow Your Digital Agency, coupled with the initiative of the same name, puts him at the forefront of that industry. And as such, he's spoken to or worked with over 4,000 agencies in just one quarter of a financial year. A highly engaging, inspirational and funny speaker, his no-nonsense approach to business is defined by focusing ideas that are simple, powerful and that work. So it's my pleasure today to welcome Robert Craven. Robert, welcome to the podcast.
Absolutely great to be here. Thanks a lot for inviting me on.
So what I'd like to do is first ask you this question. Having spent some time with you over the last year and read a lot of your work, I think you're one of those rare individuals that combines strategy and tactics and can do both successfully. So I heard you speak recently where you said that in business, since you started, everything has changed, but then nothing has changed. So what would you say are the three fundamental principles of business that have stayed the same across your business career?
Three things. So I may have to push beyond three, but we'll have a go. So where the heck are you going? Strategy. How on earth are we going to sell this stuff? Marketing. Why can't we get on better teams? And those are the obsessions of really, really effective people. But I'm going to add two more to that. One is put your prices up, and the other one is customer is king.
Right. Okay. So
five for the price of three.
5 for the price of 3. So, and those fundamental principles, I think, from what you said, have been stayed the same across that time. Now, a lot has changed in business. So that's the strategy. So those strategies, I think, will be a perennial for business forever. What would you say have been the biggest differences or biggest changes that you've seen about executing those strategies?
Oh, I think it's around speed. It's around speed and it's around frictionless. So I think that what's happened is that everything we do is compared with Amazon. Everything we do is compared with Disney. So that concept of stuff happening really, really quickly. You order it, it's there tomorrow. It's really easy to do, one click. And I'll just add the Disney thing, which is this kind of idea of celebrity service, feeling that you're special, feeling that you're looked after, feeling that you're known and that you're not a number.
Mm. Now, you work a lot with digital agencies, and you have your own digital agency as well?
Yeah, I have a small marketing agency here. That's right.
So, how would you define the value that you bring to agencies? What is it you bring to agencies?
That's a great question. I mean, what we focus on really is helping agency owner founders to run the agency they want to run, so that they can live the life they want to lead. So it kind of leads quite nicely into this whole productivity thing, because what's the point of running a business if the business isn't delivering what you want at the weekends or the evenings or the summer holidays or whatever it is?
So what would you say is the biggest barrier to digital agency owners running the agency that they want to run?
They just need to look in the mirror. I think we're part of the problem. We're part of the solution. So I think the mindset of the owner founder, I think, is absolutely core. If we're actually looking at specifically at agencies and marketing agencies, I think ironically, in a world where, like almost any business, any industry, everything's incredibly commoditized. It doesn't matter. Everyone's kind of giving you pretty much the same thing. I think it's how they present themselves, how they market themselves. Wonderful irony there.
Yeah.
So the ones doing really well have a knack of presenting themselves in a more seductive, more attractive, more differentiating way, so that people lean in and go, "Ooh, I like that. I'd like some more of that.
Right. And from a personal perspective, not you personally, but them personally, where are their biggest blocks?
I think there's a really big thing about not being able to work on the business, working in the business. And most of them go from working in the attic or the kitchen table to the dining room table to the garage to an industrial unit to employing 50, 100, 200, 500 people, and they carry with them that almost like startup mentality that I need to know everything, I need to be able to do everything, I need to be on top of stuff. So they end up being meddlers rather than strategists. They can't delegate, and that's really it's a really negative thing, because what happens is that your people feel frustrated because just when they've done something, you lean over the shoulder and you just say, "Oh, why don't you do it this way or that way?" Which doesn't really add value, but it makes the owner feel good because they feel they put their stamp on everything, but actually they're suffocating their people by doing that.
And what are the warning signs that sort of ring the alarm bells for you when you're talking to an agency owner who wants to work with you?
A belief that it's all about them, and actually it's all about, not all about them, it's all about their people. A belief that they are truly unique, that they have that people are looking for what they do. A kind of a blame culture, my staff, my customers, they. I really don't like the word they at all, and I think that's probably the biggest warning sign for me. Psychologists call it an external locus of control.
Right.
You ask these people, why aren't you getting what you want? And it's they, the banks, the accountants, the solicitors, the surveyors, the staff, the customers. It's always other people. They don't take ownership and responsibility for themselves.
So in a successful digital agency then, what does productivity look like?
Delivering, I guess in one sense, it's about delivering on time, to specification, exceeding the contractual obligation. If you want to be really kind of nuts and bolty about it, that's about giving the customer the ROI. But I think that's a kind of an efficiency piece about getting things out the door at the right time. But I think there's actually an effectiveness piece about delivering awesome value for money for your client, which is over and beyond the thing you said you were going to deliver.
So those are quite outcome focused. What about the process of productivity would you see in a productive digital agency? So they're doing the results, but how are they doing that productively?
Yeah, okay. I think it kind of depends on, and again, this is a talk about any business. It kind of depends on whether we're offering a bespoke offer or not. Although I don't think that much. Whether you go to Gordon Ramsay's and pay £70 for a piece of steak, or whether you go to McDonald's and pay $1.99 for a burger, the set of processes. This is how we do this stuff here, and there's as much attention to that detail in either case. In the bespoke thing, it is the steak will come out of the fridge and rest for 35 minutes, and it will then go onto a frying pan which is 225 degrees using 1 tablespoon of extra virgin oil, in the same way that McDonald's is the chips come out of the freezer, they go into the fat at 180 degrees for 90 seconds. So I think it's about processes and systems so that things become predictable. And I think even in a creative industry, I think there's a sense of even if you look at a painter or something, there's a sense of I know what to do to make this stuff happen. And if it's a painter, it might be, I need to meditate for an hour, and I need to have my paints around me, and I need something that stimulates me. But in a more business-oriented piece, it's about we know where we're going. I do, and I know I am outcome driven, because I think you'd have to start with the end in mind, because otherwise you're not productive if you intend to do one thing. If you intend to make a bicycle and you end up making a shed, I mean that's interesting, but it's not productive because you haven't delivered on your intention.
Sure. In your book, the Check-in Strategy Journal you wrote with Adam Harris, There's a lovely in the start of the book about how you would define yourselves as authors, and you described, or I think they say Robert would be described as the Mr. Strategy man.
Yeah.
But you did two very useful quotes. The quote I think that you liked was, "Without strategy, execution is aimless. Without execution, strategy is useless."
Yes.
And this is why so you're able to blend, having seen you operate and read your work, is that you're able to switch between the two. How do you do that? Because there are some people who excel at either end, but it's a rare person who can bring the two together.
Well, I don't know if that makes sense. I know it's a bizarre thing to say, because I wouldn't recognise myself if I walked into a room from my behaviours, and all I know is that you do this start with the end in mind thing, this kind of, so where do we want to be in 3 years time, 2 years time, 1 year's time? So what is it we need to do now? And we have a process, and it's in the check-in strategy journal, which is about saying, okay, we need to figure out where we want to be in 3 years time. Okay, if that's where we want to be, we need to work backwards from there, not forwards. And I think the mistake people make with business planning is we too often we try to go forward. So we say, where we are now, how am I going to get forward? Oh my word, I need a new PA. Oh my God, I need a new accountant. We need to move offices. And you just get bogged down with the detail and the minutiae of your current behavior. So what you have to do is shut your eyes, and you have to literally, walk, if you can imagine a timeline ahead of you, 1 week, 1 month, 1 quarter, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Open your eyes, turn around and say, okay, so where am I? Where do I want to be in 3 years' time? What does success look like for me in 3 years' time? If this is what success looks like for me in 3 years' time, where do I need to be in 2 years? Where do I need to be in 1 year? So therefore, what do I need now? So it's that kind of start with the end in mind thing.
Sure.
Enables you then to say at the beginning end, today is Wednesday morning, what's the one thing I need to do today? What's the one thing I need to do today that if I do it will make other things less necessary or unnecessary? What's the one thing I need to do this week? What's the one thing I need to do this quarter? What's the one thing I need to do this month? And by working backwards, so if, say, in 3 years' time I want to sell the business for £5 million, therefore in 2 years' time I want the business to be worth £3 million, therefore in 1 year's time we need to have a business which is pretty much fit and up for sale with all the processes in place. Therefore in 6 months' time we need to have a proof that the model works, and we need to have the sponsors and the stakeholders in place. Therefore in 1 quarter's time I need to have a business plan approved and people buying into it. Therefore in 1 week's time I need to be starting on the business plan, and I need to make the appointments with the key stakeholders to have that meeting that they're going to sign off the meeting. Therefore today the one thing I need to do is make that phone call to those 5 people I want to be on board with me. And if I do that, and it's a bit like dominoes, like that you've seen that video with a really little domino, and you knock it over and it knocks over one which is half as big again, and then half as big again, and that little domino, we'll push down a domino the size of the Empire State Building within whatever it is, just a really small number of steps.
Now, you may just have to repeat what you've just said, but in different form. But the question I'm going to ask you, because in the check-in journal, that's your 3x3 matrix, where you've got the 3 years, the 1 year, and sort of today. The currency of my 3-year goal is different from the currency of my 1 year goal, which will be different from the currency of my today's goal, i.e. the things I'm doing and achieving are going to have a slightly different magnitude. How do you make that transition from, okay, so in 3 years, I've got this big chunk of a business, big chunk of a marketing plan, big chunk of a turnover, but in a year, I haven't got that. How do you make that differentiation? This is basically for me, this is a question I always struggle with, is making that leap from one to the other.
Okay, I think what you end up doing, or I end up doing, I'm quite a visual person and kind of tactile in that sense. So I think the way we get around it in the book, and the way we get around it working with clients, is, as I say, in a kind of visual way. So what we do is we get a roll of wallpaper from B&Q, and we literally roll it out across the board table or along a wall, and we literally say, this is where we are now: turnover, profit, cash, number of staff, whatever is going on. And then you march down to the other end of the wallpaper, maybe 3 or 4 meters away, and you say, this is where we want to be in 3 years' time: turnover, profit, cash, number of staff, You mark it up into years, but the year one takes like half the paper, and then the next 2 years less, because we really want to focus on the first year more than anything else. And then with post-its, you start marking in the things that need to happen.
Right.
So some of those will be, I don't know, need to move office, need to get, if it's a personal thing, need to hit 10,000 steps, need to do my meditation. And some of them will be output driven. And I think the thing about I mean, it's the devil's spawn, KPIs, key performance indicators, is because everyone gets them wrong. That's why it's a devil's spawn, and everyone who's told about them hates them. But the thing about KPIs, which I really like, is I think there's two forms. There are the predictive ones, the things that if I do this, we'll get there. And there are like the historic ones, which are the measures of results. So sales of £1 million is clearly a measure of what we've done. We've achieved it. But actually, it may be far more important to measure 20 sales calls a week, because we know that if we do 20 sales calls a week, that we're going to get 10 meetings, and from 10 meetings we're going to do 5 proposals, and from 5 proposals we'll get 2 pieces of work, and each of those 2 pieces of work will be worth whatever the sums are. So I'm a fan of kind of mixing and blending our measures and our targets, but there's a kind of a simplicity about what the goal is. So the goal is quite narrowly defined. In other words, it might end up being, I want to sell the business for £5 million, brackets or asterisks, because if I do that, then I can invest, £3 million in a nursing home. I can invest £1 million in going around the world, and I can give my kids £333,000 each. So there's a kind of a, for me, I have a kind of a picture of what I'm going after. If that makes sense.
I mean, that's a brilliant answer for me. So I think the way I've read these before in the past is someone says, right, you've got to have your 3-year plan, then you've got to have your 1-year plan, then you've got to have your this week plan. And I think in my mind, I've assumed that there are 3 separate plans. And I've just had a huge aha moment as you're describing that actually there's one plan. It's over 3 years, and you just get a little bit more discreet the closer to today you are, because you can see what you've got to do, whereas it might be a little bit foggy in the future. So that's
I mean, my analogy is the 3-year plan might be, in 3 years time, it's like saying in 3 years time we want to arrive in San Diego, but it's pointless being too detailed about that 3-year plan and what we're going to do in San Diego if we can't get off the runway. Which is why having said 3 years, I would much rather, if we're going to spend a day doing strategy, you and I'd like let's just nail roughly what success looks like, and then we need to do a 30, 60, and 90-day plans, because if we don't get that takeoff sorted out, then, and we don't get the trajectory sorted out at the start, then the rest of it's a waste of time. So I think, go on.
The question I was going to ask then is that a lot of those plans then are in essence hypothetical until the rubber meets the road. What is the window of forward planning that you would say where actually this is what we are going to do versus this is probably where we'd like to be going?
Well, I think it moves. So I think there's a really interesting thing that if you approach it from a more business school approach for a business, then the purpose and the vision, we want to be the number one in the country, we want to be seen as the best, show people how to, that stuff doesn't change, but the measures may change, because you can be a £1 million business by selling 1 million units at £1 or 1 unit at 1 million. So you're able to move stuff around in the same way that if you say I want to be better at guitar or golf or art or whatever it is, as you approach that concept of better, it shifts along. There's a really interesting piece of research done years ago by Growing Business magazine in the States, and they took a huge number of people from beggars in the street all the way through to literally billionaires, and asked them, when is enough enough? How much money is enough? What is enough? And they all said the same answer. Every single one of them said the same answer without fail, which was a third more money than they've got at the moment.
Oh, really?
In other words, if you had, literally £5 to your name, what you wanted was 2 or 3 quid to buy a sandwich. If you had £50 in your pocket, you wanted another 40 quid so that you could actually get a night in a hostel. And if you had a Lear jet, you wanted the 18-seater when you've only got the 15-seater.
Right.
So I think I do think I think it's wrong. I have to say I think it's wrong, but I do think people are always kind of moving the goalposts, and I would actually like to push back on that.
Yeah.
With my egg mayonnaise sandwich story, which is very, very quick.
Sure.
Which is a conversation I had with someone, beautiful wife, beautiful children, but working his cotton socks off in order to buy the house and buy the holidays and pay for the nanny and all the usual stuff. And it's like, mate, why don't you just grab a bottle of wine, make an egg mayonnaise sandwich, take your beautiful wife and your beautiful child, and go to the park at the end of the road, put out the rug, drink the wine, eat the egg mayonnaise sandwich with your beautiful wife and your beautiful child, because it doesn't get any better than that. And it doesn't. And I think that, way too many of us wait for this clap of happiness to appear. And they think the clap of happiness is to do with, the trappings of success. And actually, most of it is there already. It's just that people can't see the wood for the trees. Acres of Diamonds is a story.
Acres of Diamonds, yeah, great book that is. Just reflecting back on something you said earlier on about the KPIs being the spawn of the devil. By the way, do you still consider web developers and SEO specialists as in the same bracket? I saw you mentioned that. You don't?
No. I think there's the short answer is no. I think it's fascinating. There's a whole bunch of people out there trying to figure out how they can help their clients using a particular technology. I think that makes them really, really interesting. And it's something which has become commoditized, and at the same time they're selling hot air. It's a service firm. So I think that makes the challenges absolutely fascinating.
It was just something I thought was really funny, your delivery in the video that I saw. So coming back to your point about KPIs, I think this issue around behaviour, excuse me, I just cough. Sorry about that. This issue around behaviour and the measure of behaviour. So I was working with a industrial plant up in the northwest, and we were talking about the process of behaviour-driven performance. And he was, as plant manager, was running a production line that had production targets, and so understanding the importance of behaviours and the right behaviours and positively reinforcing those and holding people to account when they didn't do those really grasped his thought process. So what he did, he scrapped all KPIs in a production plant and just focused on behaviours. And the year that he did that, he exceeded his production targets massively just by doing that. And it was quite a brave move for him to do that. But I think I wholeheartedly agree this process of behaviours is really important, and I share your view on KPIs. So we've talked about how productivity lands itself in digital agencies and this issue of planning. So for Robert Craven, what does productivity look like for you?
Whoa, that's a really great question. I think it means, for me, it means getting to the end of the day and feeling that was a great day. I got done what I needed to do in order to get to the next step. So I think there's a sense, as opposed to, oh, that was a trudge, that was a grind, that was tough. So for me, productivity's got something, there's some sense of pleasure in there about actually enjoying the journey, because I have to enjoy the journey. If I don't enjoy the journey, why on earth should I do it? So I think productivity is about getting done what you said you were going to do.
Okay. So there's an integrity issue there and a value system about consistency with your intentions. How do you actually execute that? What are the things that you do that put that in place?
Okay. So I have a very, I don't believe in to-do lists. I believe in schedules, but I don't believe in to-do lists. And I very rarely write a to-do list unless there's like 72 things to do on a particular project, in which case I think is a project plan. But every morning, so big time, once a year, go away. What's the big one thing I need to achieve this year? For the 3-year goal, for the 1-year goal, what do I need to achieve this 6 months? What do I need to achieve this quarter? What do I need to achieve this month? And then what do I need? And then at the beginning of the week or Sunday night,
how long does that take you, by the way? That sort of that planning process for that, looking ahead for the year.
I normally take half a day out to do that. Sit in a cafe.
So you get out of the workplace. So
oh gosh, yeah. I used to do it in Toulouse in my favourite cafe on a Sunday morning. I used to work for Airbus there, and I always had Sundays off, so I used to go off and do that. And the interesting thing, of course, is you come home and you tell your wife what your great plan is, and then my wife in my case puts me right about how much I've got wrong. But there's value in that. There's value in the feedback. So
I'm sorry. What does that look like when you've done your year? What does that physically look like?
Oh, it's a 3x3. It's a 3x3 matrix. You kind of
right. You do 3x3, yeah.
Which is for the business, for the career, and for my private life.
Yeah.
Where do I want to be in 3 years' time? Where do I want to be in 1 year's time? What have I got to do now?
Right.
4 to 5 bullet points in each box.
No more than that?
No more than that. And
right.
Try and put numbers to things.
Okay.
So don't put big house, put house worth £2 million. Don't put great car, put BMW Series 7, blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of the bigger piece.
Yeah.
If I had time, I would do a meditation on shutting my eyes and going through how do I get to work at the moment? So brushing my teeth, looking in the mirror, what do I look like? What do I hear? What's in the house? I'm about to go to work. Stop, rewind, and then imagine it's 3 years on and I've been successful. And now imagine brushing my teeth. What do I look like? Where am I? Who's in the house? And then travel to work, and what does work look like, and what's on the wall.
You actually contrast between your way it is now to the way you want it to be.
Yeah. And that's really informative because that just releases. So you might walk to work, and when you get to work, the office might be overlooking the woods, and there might be classical music in the background, or there might be a photo of you with Richard Branson or whatever. So you just let your imagination do stuff. Because I think the normal way that people plan, which is the accountant takes last year's spreadsheet and adds 10%, is hopeless. I mean, as proven by the times that we're in now, that kind of version doesn't work. So why not start with the end in mind, with what you want, and then figure out how to get there rather than adding to where you are now.
So can I just ask the imagination bit of looking into the future 3 years, have you actually said, right, this is what I want, and therefore you visualize it, or do you just walk into it and see what comes into your mind?
Walk into it.
Right.
And see so you need to do it without prepping or tricking yourself.
Okay.
You don't want to go, oh, I must have that Ferrari. I must have that Ferrari. Shut my eyes. Where do I be in 3 years' time? Oh, I must have a Ferrari. It's far more just letting go and walking along and being relaxed enough. You arrive at the workplace and whoa, it's like glass fronted, and there's a big photo of you, or there's a big photo of the team, or there's a team of 100, or there's fish tanks, or there's a picture of you receiving the Entrepreneur of the Year award, or whatever it is. But you just let your mind it's a very loose. That's why I kind of use the word meditative.
Do you share that with the people you work with in the Gita process?
Yeah, I do.
And how's it received?
It's fine because it's I mean, this thing about neuro-linguistic programming, and different people receive things visually or tactilely or but through hearing and stuff, and it's my version of what we're trying to achieve, and unless they know what I'm trying to achieve, they can't help me do that.
Right.
If they know that I'm trying to sell the business in 3 years' time, they can help me. If they know that I want to be the most profitable, they can help me. If they know that I want to only work 1 day a week, they can help me. But unless I share my goals with them, they can't help me do that. So going back to your question, which is, so how do I make this happen? So we've talked about the kind of the big picture stuff about how you set the scene on a annual, on a quarterly, on a monthly, on a weekly, and on a daily basis. There's a piece of reflection, what just happened in the previous unit, and a piece of projection, what's happening in the next unit. So on a Sunday night, I will say, okay, let's looking back on last week, what worked, what didn't work, what could I have done better, what did I enjoy, what didn't I enjoy, who should I be thankful to or for, and then in the week coming, what does my week coming look like? And then the little technique that I'd like to share with you is, what's the one thing I need to do this week? What's the one thing which is the thing I have to do this week? Brackets, which will make everything less necessary or unnecessary. And what are 3 other things? And so on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, I just go through that exercise of just jotting it down. What's the one thing I need to do and 3 other things? So this morning, there's one thing that I've written down, one thing that I have to do, and 3 other things I have to do. And it's kind of 80-20ing everything. You can't do everything. You can't, And the reason I hate to-do lists so badly is they've always got 47 things on them. They always go on to the next page. And they just make you feel rubbish because of all the things you've not achieved, until eventually you just forget about it because it's never going to happen, because it's 20 days in a row you've copied it to the next list that you really ought to. So it's far easier to put stuff in the schedule, because then you do it at the right time, at a time you've got time allocated to do it. So you're not overwhelmed by all the minutiae that just kill your energy and your enthusiasm.
It's a great way of describing it. I call it a list of options. I don't call it a to-do list. And I say if people manage their time by to-do list, that's where their problem lies. So I share your view on that. So a question I have for you then, as you've evolved that strategy, where is the rigidity? Is the rigidity in the fixed plan and you adjust your behaviours? Or do you find yourself having to adjust your plan to match the behaviours that either you're capable of or willing to invest in to make those plans happen?
Can you repeat that? That might be too complicated for my
brain. So if I would take the last year, for example, it's been a difficult year for everybody. So you would have started your year with a set of plans. Yeah. So as the year unfolded with COVID, did you find yourself having to adapt your plans in order to meet the requirements because things have changed? Or did you find yourself having to do extra things in order to meet the plans that you'd set at the beginning of the year in spite of what's happened with COVID?
Great question. Now I understand it. Okay, so what COVID taught us. So firstly, I did a great thing, which I recommend everyone do, is I wrote an article entitled My 50 Business Mistakes and What I've Learned. And I found that really, really valuable. Writing down all the things that I'd done which had shot me in the foot or not done me any favors, and also there's a learning to every one of them. So that kind of really set me up to remind me about what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing, and also that we all make these mistakes. I think what the COVID thing did for me, slightly tangentially, but it holds true, is and people know that I'm not a great fan of touchy-feely bollocks. But what it did was it made me nail our values to the mast. Okay, so I have always got a post-it on my monitor at any one time that says 2 things, which is radical candor, which means we tell people stuff as it is, and give a shit. Pardon the language. I'm sorry if that upsets anyone. And those are the values of the business, and those are my values. And with the values in front of you, then the detail can sort itself out. So COVID was fantastic because it meant we could reinvent ourselves. We still need to get to a destination, but we've got to get to that destination in a different way, and it may take slightly longer. Okay, but we still know why we're doing it. Our purpose hasn't changed. We still know who we're working with. That hasn't changed. But the platform and the methods of delivery have changed beyond all recognition. Last year I did 18 transatlantic flights, spoke in 32 countries, blah, blah, blah. And this year I've slept in the same bed for 9 months now, consecutively with the same woman every single night. And a whole income stream, which would keep, which looked after me very, very well, gone. Okay. Second income stream, training. We do training here, do loads of training, as well as the keynote speaking, running training programs across Europe mainly and Eastern Europe. That whole line gone. I mean, we lost 60% of our revenue straight away. And then our existing clients, where I'm on the board of sort of 4 agencies and so on and so forth, whereas we used to work with them for a day a month, it's been condensed to an hour a month. So the propositions had to change, the pricing models had to change, but the intention, which is what I said right at the beginning, if you recall, which was we help agency owners run the agency they want to run so they can live the lives they want to lead, hasn't changed at all. That is still our motto, so to speak. That's still our one-liner about what we do. But yes, I think it is thus in any case. You know, you can get to where you want to a number of different ways. And I think what COVID has done is I think it's really kind of sorted out the sheep from the lambs in some senses. And I don't mean to be in any way disrespectful. I think that some people, especially those who've not seen a couple of recessions, are trying to deliver the model they delivered a year ago and wondering why it's not working. And then there are some people who are more, we've seen it all before, so to speak, more entrepreneurial and able to say, okay, that worked then. We need to kind of rethink what will work for our customers now. So this goes back again to this thing about, you know, customer is king and about being frictionless and people resenting a lag and then wanting it quicker and faster. So the businesses that have suffered, you know, are the ones who've not been able to adapt. I'm not going to be clever and quote Darwin, but I think there is something about recognizing that the environment's changed and we can't keep on doing the same thing.
I think the term survival of the fittest isn't relevant anymore. I think it's the survival of those who are most flexible and adaptable. I think that's what this time has shown for us. I can highly recommend you. I mean, I have the first 20 of your wisdoms printed out by my PC. This is when you were only giving away the first 20. I've now got all 50. And I can highly recommend it. I'll make sure I put in the show notes a link to where we find that. Interesting enough, when I was reading through these last night, I noticed I could have categorized at least a third of them as being productivity related. Which was really an interesting insight. Where have you drawn your, as we come to the close of this now, where have you drawn your productivity inspiration from? I know in your book, Grow Your Digital Agency, you quote Covey's 7 principles from his book, The 7 Habits.
Yeah.
I know you're a big fan of Gary Keller's The One Thing. You've quoted his one question a number of times in this. Where else have you drawn your inspiration from?
I think those two are about as good as it gets. Stephen Covey. I think the principles are awesome. I don't think his delivery of it's very good, but I think the 7 habits are just stunning because they apply to the business and your private life, and they're almost spiritual. And I think Keller, again, you know, you don't have to read the whole book. It's just like, what's the one thing you need to do that makes everything else less necessary or unnecessary? Boom, got it. It's the simplicity that I like. And other inspiration, I mean, I've been very privileged. I was director of consulting at Warwick Business School, so I used to sit in unbelievable number of presentations by, you know, personal development gurus and people. So I was very lucky to be exposed to that very early on, and I kind of realized that, and I was always fascinated by how do you do this? How do people do this? And I remember the first program, my first business was when I was 21, and I went on a small business course at Bristol University. And I remember looking at the people delivering it. I remember who they were, June Burrow and a guy called Peter. I can't remember Peter's surname now. And I thought, wow, how do these people know all this stuff about this is how you organize, this is management, this is how you supervise, these are the principles of, this is time management, this is how you get a job done. How do they know? There must be books on this somewhere. And then and I've always just been obsessed with, reading. Because every time I write a book, I read 30 or 40 to confirm or disprove my beliefs, to get a sense of it. And so I've always been obsessive about understanding the principles or the theories. But I think that at the end of the day, it's all quite simple. And funnily enough, I got a call later on today with someone, and their problem is I've now read 30 business books. I have no idea what to do. And I remember a client before saying he wished he'd never read so much because it's really confused him. They're not right, but I think it's just a synthesis, really, to answer the question.
So my last question, or my penultimate question, is if you could go back in time to a point when it would make most impact for you, what's the one productive habit that you wish you'd had back then and done more of?
Taking Fridays off. I'm pretty obsessive now about 80-20 rule. There's always a 20% that delivers an 80% of output. And I'm also pretty obsessive about eliminating stuff now. So my office manager came into the office yesterday, and she didn't recognise the place because I think I've thrown away roughly half the stuff we used to have here. We're never going to use it. Just get rid of it. And I guess that kind of counteracts my messiness generally. But that ability to eliminate, because what am I going to do on a Friday if I take a Friday off? I'm going to go for a bike ride or a swim or play with the kids. And that supercomputer in between my shoulders will just work on the problems. I've never made a good decision in front of a computer. Yeah. And yet, especially nowadays, we spend all our time in front of a computer. It's so bonkers. Great ideas happen in the shower, walking in the woods, on a bike ride. And in fact, the thing you should do more of is, let me give the listeners and the viewers an hour back a day, because I think they deserve it. Yeah. One, meditate, even if it's only 15 minutes in the morning. Just when you wake up in the morning, do not go to your mobile phone. Yeah. Do not even have it in your bedroom. When you wake up in the morning, 15 minutes meditation, just clear the brain and let whatever that stuff is that flows through and comes in, goes out. So you're actually relaxed, so you're ready to deal with the day and decide what you're going to do and make it happen. And the second plea, and I might even make it into a campaign because it's driving me mad, is take social media off your mobile phone. It will give you between half an hour and an hour a day.
Absolutely.
And it means that when you're with your partner or with your kids or with your friends, you will focus on them rather than just clipping through, checking what the latest message on Facebook or Twitter is, or Instagram, or whatever it is. It is just bonkers how people have become morons in a way, dependent on little dopamine hits manufactured elsewhere to keep them addicted to the machine. Just bonkers. So you will get an hour back a day. Take Facebook and Twitter off your phone, and LinkedIn, and meditate for 15 minutes in the morning. That's an hour a day. That's 7 hours a week I've given you.
I share those behaviours, the ones I also subscribe to as well, so I can wholeheartedly endorse those as well. Robert, thank you. As we finish then, where can people find out more about you and the work that you do?
Best place is probably robert-craven.com. So that's robert-craven.com. There's pretty much everything there, and that'll access the consultancy business I run. That'll access the speaking. It'll access the Grow Your Digital Agency work. So robert-com is the place, and you'll see from there all the various social media things. Always happy to talk. Always happy to answer people.
That's fantastic. Robert, thank you very much indeed for your time. It's been a great conversation.
My pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Peak Performance Productivity Podcast. If you've not already done so, then head over to peakperformanceproductivity.co to get your free productive habit installation kit, a proven process for the permanent embedding of highly productive behaviours. And if you've got just one productive idea that you can use from today's episode, then please like, share, subscribe, comment or review to show your appreciation to today's guest. Until next time.